Good evening, Guided community and friends and team members. We're really excited for this evening. And my name is Amir Glogau. I'm the founder and CEO of Guidely. And Guidely is I'll just say, home for personal development and spiritual transformation right now. We can share more about what we do later. And I am so excited to host tonight my friend Sunny Dawn Johnston. Hey, Sunny.
Hey.
And her group of friends. She's not coming alone. So
No, I'm not.
for the group invitation, why don't you bring your buddies with you? So really excited for this. So I want to ask people as you trickle in, if you're comfortable, open your camera. We want to see you. We want as much presence as you possibly can. It will enhance your experience. And if you don't mind dropping in the chat, where are you from? And like, what is I want to go for an archangel. If you know what the most popular archangel that you call, or who do you seek help with spiritually? Like, you can name spirit, you can name whatever you want to call it, but I'm curious, what do we go to? Like, if my mom was here, she's probably hovering somewhere, and she would probably call somebody to hospitalize me because she never. But in times of crisis, she would absolutely call for help. So who do you seek answers from? And you can put Sunny is included, by the way. You can say, I call Sunny for help. Hey, what do I do with this? And we're going to come to a Q&A later. So I see already Connie raising your hand. I appreciate that. And there will be a time at the end of the interview portion where we're going to have a live discussion with some of you. So if you guys don't mind being patient to that time. And we're going to wait a couple more minutes to let people trickle in. We want to roll. That's fun. Rhode Island. Where else? Northern California. Phoenix, Arizona.
Salt Lake City.
Salt Lake City, there it is. Hi, Joanne. So we have a few guides here. I already see quite a few community members and guides that are joining us today. Thank you guys for participating in this. Patty from New York. That's great. So I feel like this is we're a community that is global, as my friend says, intergalactic. So today we're bringing in all the intergalactic components, but we typically do this. This is our favorite time, Thursday afternoon. So a lot of our friends on other parts of the world will only benefit from that. So I want to say on the recording, hey, welcome you guys too. And you'll see that in the recording. And Sunny, good evening.
Good evening. So excited to be here. Yeah. I'm great.
Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I love it.
Yeah. And I want to maybe start with a basic question. If we can just dive in, and if you want to share with us your first encounter, from what I recall, with angels was very young, right?
It was a very long time ago now these days. It keeps getting further and further away too.
The start point never doesn't change. It's just the perspective.
But we just keep getting a little further away. Sometimes I have to do the math and go, okay, how many years was that?
You look younger and younger. And I would love to hear your journey, because for many of us, I mean, I grew up in a Jewish family, not religion or spiritual in any way, and any talk about angels or spirits or something like that would be considered like, taboo.
Sure.
So would love to hear a little bit about how it started for you.
Yeah. So, I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah, and so I was really surrounded by religion all the way around. However, my family and everyone except for my mom and dad both left the church when they were teenagers. So they didn't really raise me with any religious foundation. And so I didn't really have the kind of although I knew a lot about it because you were forced to go to church a lot, even though I wasn't religious, but I didn't really have a lot of fundamental teaching. And so my mom and dad really just allowed me to kind of experience whatever I experienced, which was great. My mom was studying and checking out all different kinds of religions and studying with different beliefs and kind of trying to find what was true for her after having been raised LDS for so long. And so what happened for me was on a seemingly random evening one night, I was 13 years old. I went to bed and I woke up at 1 o'clock in the morning. And when I woke up, I went to roll over. I looked at my clock and I went to roll over and I saw a beautiful, colorful winged being above my bed. And, you know, Amir, it wasn't as much of even what I saw, although it was a little bit like, wait a minute, this doesn't usually happen, but it was what I felt. And what I felt was this just this peace and this calm and this energy that I really hadn't ever experienced before. And I felt so calm that literally I just rolled over and went back to sleep. And I mean, I'm 13. So, right. Wouldn't you think I'd jump out of bed and be like, okay, there's something flying around in my room. Right. But I didn't. I was really just like, it was the most amazing feeling that I can still feel every time I tell the story. I can still feel it. And it was this energy of unconditional love that I hadn't experienced. And so, you know, I went to bed, I fell back asleep, was fine. I woke up the next morning, my head kicked in. And then I ran downstairs and I'm like, okay, wait a minute. This is what happened. I told my mom. And she said, well, Sunny, that was your guardian angel. And I said, I don't think I have one of those. And she says, well, of course you have one. And I said, nope, I don't think so. And she said, well, why would you not have a guardian angel? But everybody has a guardian angel. I said, I don't think I do. Because if I did, then none of the bad things that have happened in my life would happen. Because my perception at 13, right? I think a lot of like, they would save me from everything if I had a guardian angel. And so I kind of argued with her a little bit. And then she went on to tell me that she had come into my bedroom that night because I wasn't in a real good emotional state. Growing up in Salt Lake City, Utah, not being Mormon was really difficult. And so I had a lot of inner conflict and emotional pain. And so she had come in that night and she had prayed over me. And she had asked God and the angels to keep me safe because she was concerned about my mindset. And so what I realized when she said that in that moment was that I had awakened to the manifestation of my mother's prayer. And I know, right? It gives them to me, and it happened to me. So I'd awakened to the manifestation of my mother's prayer, and I knew that I knew that was real. Couldn't explain it. I wasn't quite sure. I believed that it was angels, but I knew that it was real. And so what that did for me, Amir, was it made me curious. It made me curious. And so from that point on, I wanted to experience that again. Like, okay, what do I do? Do I go to bed the same way? Do I drink the same drink beforehand? Do I have the same, like, how do you recreate that? And I couldn't figure out how to recreate it. And so what I did in my 13-year-old mind was I said out loud, and this literally was my prayer because I wasn't like a formal prayer person. Hey, if you're still there, could you come back and can we do that again? That literally was my prayer. And I asked that every day, several times a day. And what happened was after a couple of weeks, they did. And that opened the door. And it opened the door to the journey that I've been on for almost 40 years. And it was an amazing journey, but not without a lot of challenge in trying to wrap my head around the experience that I was feeling, yet nobody else believed or understood, or I couldn't even share it. And so there's a lot of conflict I think a lot of us go through when we're wanting to open up to our spirituality, open up to the angels and guides and deceased loved ones. And then yet we're surrounded by people that maybe think it's not so great and that it's not real, or that it's, maybe the sign of something else. And so that was the journey that I went on for well, here we are.
The one sentence that really caught I was going to say the ear, but really my heart, is that you felt unconditional love and peace.
I did. I did. And
So,
that has been the experience in connecting with the angels and continuing to stay in connection with them. That's why I do, because I didn't know what that was like in my human life. Not, my parents weren't horrible, but they did the best they could. And I had never experienced that before. And I wanted so much to have that. And that was the only space that I ever really felt it.
wow. So it's interesting because, we talk about developing all sorts of spiritual practices and look for motivation and discipline, and how do I meditate every day, or how do I, and it sounds to me like that's the best candy one can have, because if you taste that flavor once, you get hooked. You want it again.
You do. And I think it's interesting when it wasn't something I was asking for. I mean, I was 13, like a lot of times nowadays, most of the people that are joining us, they're older than 13. So they've had life experience and they say, okay, now I want to experience this. For me, it was the other way around. I was almost, and I did for the next 15 years, I pushed against it too. I brought it in and I pushed and I pushed and I pulled. And so I think that when you're at that age, I was so innocent in a lot of my ideas and ways of understanding even the world, that all I knew was, and I knew this, that if I could experience it once without knowing anything, without wanting it, I had to be able to experience it again. I didn't know how, but I knew that it was possible. And then the ripple effect of that was that the experiences just kept showing up. And all I had to do was I had to be present. That was it.
Wow. So it's so beautiful, because it really, without you're answering a lot of things that I'm processing in my life unrelated to this, because I always talk about that emotion, the biggest gravity force that works on us is how we want to feel. And there was a part in you, and a part in your mom's prayer, that wanted for you unconditional love and peace.
Yes.
And it wasn't even the answers you got, or any solutions, or because I think we tend to go to spirits or to angels or for answers. Hey, what do I do with this relationship or with that situation, and it's really not even about that. The first gate is really the experience of unconditional love.
Yes. I mean, I didn't even know what I wanted. I knew what I didn't want. I knew what I didn't want, but I didn't even know what I wanted. And I think that was kind of the beauty. And I think that's one of the reasons why it happened when I was so young. The older I got, I think had I not had that experience, I would have pushed way harder against it. But because it was at a really critical time in my life personally, I think it caught my attention so much to know that was available. And now, so what I realized, and this is something that it's taken me many years to really develop, but I realized I didn't have to do anything to deserve that. I didn't need to be good enough. I didn't need to stay in school. I didn't need to get the good grades. I didn't need to do anything. All I was being was a spirit and a body that had no idea. I wasn't religious. I wasn't nothing. And I deserved it. So if I deserve that experience, and that's kind of been the mission of my life, is to help people to recognize that you deserve it no matter what, because it's innate, it's within you. And that's all the angels were showing me, is you already are this. You just don't know it.
Am I going to have goosebumps the whole night?
Maybe.
My hair is like standing up. Wow. So I didn't have to do anything to deserve that. That is so good, so good. Sunny, so I know that after that experience, you've had some other experiences in life where you actually called the help or angels to help you in making some choices in your life with your baby, with
quite
others.
a few.
You mind sharing some?
Sure, absolutely. I'm an open book. I think you probably know that by reading that book. You know, I do want to say that, you know, a lot of times I think when I share that story, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, I wish that would have happened to me, because if it would have happened to me, then my journey would have started so much sooner. And this is what I want to remind you all of, is even though that happened, and it was cool, and I was opening up, it was like I was in class with the angel. Like they would come to me, share messages with me, teach me about how to tune into that energy. I started seeing colors and had feelings. I mean, I had so many experiences. And at the very same time that I was having those experiences, then I'd push them away, because I wanted, my greatest dream in my life at that age, 13, 14, 15, was to be normal. And I wanted to be like everybody else. I wanted to be the popular girl. I wanted to be the skinny girl. I wanted to be the one that everybody accepted. And I wasn't any of those. And so my challenge in my life, and self-created, was that I had these experiences and I had this amazing blessing. And then at the same time, I would embrace it, and then I would push it away and ignore it and deny it. And then I would embrace it, and then I would push it away and ignore it. And then I would push it so far that I was like, oh shit, I better get some help. And then I would ask for that support, and I'd have a miraculous experience. And then I'd get my ego and I'd push it away. And I did that for 15 years. So I can be a slow learner too. Okay. And so I did. I had a lot of experiences, but one of the ones that stands out, that's one of the more powerful ones that so many people are really amazed by. And I think it teaches us about the power of our connection to the angels, and opening up our ability to receive. Because we can ask all day long. You can ask for help. You can ask for support, if you dare even ask. I would even struggle to ask. But asking is different than receiving that help and receiving that support and receiving that guidance. And so the experience that stands out, that's really one of the most powerful ones, is at the age of 18, I found myself pregnant. Don't know how that happened. But as a teenage pregnant young lady, being raised in the environment I was raised, this was not something people were excited about. This was a very shame-inducing, guilt-ridden, scary experience for me. And so when I discovered that I was pregnant, I was already about 3 months pregnant when I found out, because I was in complete denial. Within a very short amount of time, I developed toxemia, because I was so afraid. I had so much emotion, and we all know that the emotion in our bodies, if it's not moved through and not healed, then it manifests in our body. And so toxic thoughts, toxic body. And I was having that experience. And so, you know, I developed toxemia at 4 months pregnant. Then that turned into eclampsia, which turned in, or preeclampsia, which turned into eclampsia. So I was on complete bed rest for most of that pregnancy. And when I finally went in to have my son, and went into labor, I had a stroke while I was in labor. And so they did an emergency C-section, and they took my son, and he was healthy, and that was miraculous in and of itself. But more so, what the bigger issue was, is I got very, very, very sick. I had 106.3 degree temperature for almost 3 weeks. Whoa. And really barely survived. And most of that time I was out of my body. You know, I hung out kind of as a witness of what was happening. And it's so interesting, because I still to this day can see my nurse's, the top of his head. He had 2 cowlicks on the back of his head. I don't even know what his face looks like, because I was in so much pain. I was just out of my body most of that time. But what happened, Amir, that was really the blessing and the gift that really helped me to start to shift my direction, was that the doctors came into my hospital room on a Saturday morning. I was by myself, which I was most of the time in the hospital. And they said to me, we don't think you're going to make it through the night. We've tried everything that we can. We've done, you're resistant to all antibiotics. This infection was from my breasts to my knees, just complete oozing infection. And so they said, we need you to sign a release and let us know where your son is supposed to go, because I was a single mom. And so where does he go if you don't live? And my 18-year-old mind was like, oh, wait a minute, I just had all I had was a baby. Like, people don't die having, that was my mind. Like, people don't die having babies in the 90s. Come on. And I think that what happened was it brought me into reality, even though I was in pain and out of my body, it brought me into reality, and it said, oh, you're sick, like really sick, like you're in bad shape. And so they left, and I laid there for a moment, and I was strapped down. My arms were strapped down because the infection was so painful that I would scratch it. And so they had me strapped down. So I was in receiving mode. Okay. That's what I like to think. Like, they were forcing me because that's the way I needed it. Right. Like, arms way stretched out across. And I had my intuition said to me to contact every person that I knew, family member, friend, whoever it was, and ask them to pray. And I was not somebody that loved prayer. Like, I kind of had issues around it because of the way I was raised. And I did. I caught $323 phone bill later. But then what happened was that Archangel Raphael appeared in my room. And what he said to me was, he said, breathe in my green light and breathe out the infection. And so for 12 hours, laying in that hospital room by myself, strapped down, I would visualize, and I could see this green energy coming in. And as I would breathe it in, I could see it move through, because I was above my body. I could see it move through my body. And then when I would breathe out what looked like, from my perspective, like tar. And I did that for 12 hours, the entire evening into the next morning. And when the doctors came in the next morning to do their rounds, my fever had broke for the first time in almost 3 weeks. Wow. And the really cool part of that was, it was Mother's Day. And I hadn't seen my baby since he was born. And so after I discovered that my temperature had broken, I checked myself out of the hospital. I left that day. And I said, well, the next day. And I said, if I'm going to go, I'm going to go, and I'm going to see my baby. And it gave me this courage, though, that I knew that Raphael's presence was with me. And I knew that and all the doctors could say was it was a miracle. They couldn't explain it. And I knew why. I knew what happened. And so I wanted to then carry that experience into my daily life and to live every day like that. You know, that was really my goal. And I hung on to that. And I appreciated and held that as such a sacred experience for so long. And then life got a hold of me, and I started getting into my head again. And then I started doing the pushback. And you would think, I mean, hello, what do you need here, Sunny? Where's your sign, right? But it was always something that I knew I could go to, and that the presence, when I was in those desperate situations, that the angels would be there. Now, the problem, and the thing I want to remind you guys of, is you do not have to wait until you're dying. I highly suggest it. You don't have to wait till you're dying. But the thing is it's so hard for us to ask, but what's even harder is to receive. And that's what the angels have taught me the most throughout my entire life, is to ask and allow yourself to receive, because we deserve.
What a story, Sunny. Wow. Did you know at that moment that was Archangel Raphael?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I knew then, because I had already had experiences throughout my earlier years with him. And I absolutely knew, and I felt very safe. It was kind of the same thing. I was like, okay, good. Like I felt safe. I felt loved. And I knew I was going to be okay. I knew it. I didn't know how, because it didn't make sense with what everybody else was saying. But, you know, isn't that the challenge in our lives, right? Is to not listen to what everybody else is saying and just focus on exactly what you know to be true.
We have so many emotions here in the chat, like people are crying and touched, and it's really such an inspiring and empowering story of really knowing how to tap. And I really wanted to get to that story, because not so that we use it on the deathbed, but really to understand how critical it can be for us to know and to get answers and to feel supported. And our tagline at Guidely is never walk alone.
Yes.
And if you work with your guides, you never walk alone, right?
Exactly.
And if you work with your archangels, you never walk alone.
Exactly. And that's actually what's on the back of my book. You are never alone.
You never know.
And so I think it's so important to remember, because I think had I not had that experience, I don't know. Yeah, there it is.
No one is truly
No one
alone.
is truly alone. Mhm. I don't know, had I not had that experience, I don't know that I would have that absolute belief in my ability to fill in the blank, heal, to grow, to take the step, to break through the fears. But it's because I know that I'm not alone, and I know that I have the support, and it's been evidenced to me in so many ways. And so some of you that are listening might think, okay, yeah, but I haven't had that experience. But part of the reason that we don't have it is because we're not aware of it, because we're not paying attention, because we're not present. One of the things the angel said to me early on was, we never leave you, you leave us.
Yeah.
Well, fair enough.
That's easier said than done, you know.
Right. Yeah. And I had to agree, like, you know what? I would check out, I would walk away, I wouldn't listen. I stopped meditating. I disconnected. They didn't go anywhere. I did.
Right. So Sunny, you talked a lot about the back and forth, the inconsistent connection with them. I'm first of all, I'm curious. Do you feel now in your life that you're constantly connected with your angels?
I'm not going to say constantly, because I still have my moments. I still have my like, oh, like this isn't working out the way I want it to. So I still for sure have the human moments, which I think gratefully, because I really want to be in the life still. Because I think once we're done, we're done. Like we can check out then. And I certainly am still a student. But I guess what I would say is that I've gotten much better at recognizing it much more quickly. As soon as I can feel that disconnection, that separation, or that ego that pops in, it's like, I don't need help. I can do it myself. That's one of my big ones. I can do it myself. And then usually I get a lesson in how not myself I'm doing, So I do think I have gotten much better. But those years were I was training, I was learning, and we're all learning. And, just because I started at a young age, those of you that are listening I want you to take in that it's a journey and it's a lifetime. It's not something we master. It's something that we consistently open ourselves up to. And the receiving piece of it, I think, is so important, because we do, even if we do really well, we have points in time where our ego pops in, where we get disconnected, where we separate, where we feel bad, we feel like we don't deserve, and then we push away. And so we want to just really get into that, being open to receive. And it's part of my practice every single day. To this day, I still open my arms every morning and say some mantras and breathe in the energy of, I am open to receive all this for my highest and greatest good every day still.
Perfect lead to my next question.
Okay.
What is now your daily routine that you recommend that from your perspective, and I know we all have different daily routines and we can develop what works for us, but is it mantras, is it meditation, is it yoga, is it conversation, is it what do you do to stay connected to those angels in your life?
So every every morning I do 5 things, and they don't have to take a long time. The first thing that I do is I meditate, and my meditation can be anywhere from 3 minutes to 30 minutes, depending, or longer, depending on the time available. Some days are better than others, and some days we have more going on. And so the first thing I do is meditate, but my meditation is not ever about asking. My meditation is really plugging in. It's like reminding myself that I am spirit and body first. And I want my spirit to be guiding my life. I don't want my head to be guiding my life, because it doesn't turn out as well when I think I'm the one that's making all the decisions and in charge. So it's kind of like a plug-in for me that just acknowledges, thank you for my presence here in this moment. And I'm kind of tapping in, right? So the second thing I do after meditation is I always call on Archangel Michael. And I ask Archangel Michael to surround me and help me to maintain my energy so that I don't absorb the energy of others, seen or not seen. And that is because as a sensitive, as an empath, whatever term you want to use, that was one of the greatest struggles of my entire life, and it can still be today, is taking on the weight of the world, absorbing the density. There's so much going on and feeling like I'm responsible for all of it. And so I've learned how to be able to manage my energy much better by working with Michael to help support me in that. So asking for help from Michael is number 2. The third thing that I do every single morning is I open my arms and I repeat over and over. And here's the key for me. I repeat it until I feel it. I don't just say it once or twice. I am open and receptive to all that is for my highest and greatest good. And it changes. I say it a little bit differently each time, but it's just, and I literally open my heart, which opens my chest and opens my heart center, because that's been a great challenge for me as well. The fourth thing I do is I ask Spirit, how may I serve today? And then I brace myself. Because sometimes when you put that prayer out, get ready for what's coming, right? But I always want to be in service, whether that service is to myself or to others. That is a deep part of my my gift, I believe. And then the last thing I do when I get out of bed is I say thank you. So that's my process. And it can be 15 minutes, it could be an hour, just depending on the time I have available.
But those are really, that's really beautiful. So such a great, installation of operating system every morning that make us really directed and be intentional about how we show up to ourselves and others.
Sure.
I love
go ahead.
I love the connection to Archangel Michael, and ask him not to be influenced by others, present or not, because that's such a, we get so consumed in today's social media and whatever news and other people, and sense need for approval and all the good things that we have around us, that separating from that is really, really so beautiful and powerful.
Well, I think when for a lot of you that are listening, you might find, as I did, when I was a teenager, I felt physical pain that wasn't mine. I didn't know where it came from. And I just thought sometimes that I was just like a hypochondriac, like, so, okay, my hip hurts now, my back hurts now. And I never really knew that I was literally absorbing people. I was such a sensitive person. I could feel their physical pain and I could feel their emotional pain. And so I didn't know where one person ended and I began. There was no boundary, and I didn't have boundaries, and I certainly didn't have energetic boundaries. And that moved into my 20s, and really until my probably early 30s did I actually get really clear on the fact that I am feeling literally the weight of the world, and my body showed it. I carried it, I carried a lot of extra weight in my body all through my teen years, my early 20s. And I as soon as I started working with Michael consistently, a couple of things happened. The first one was that the weight went away. Like I didn't need the protection any longer because I was actually managing my own energy. And the second thing that happened is that I was able to actually be an observer of people's pain and not an absorber of people's pain.
So good.
Life-changing for me, life-changing. And I found that was part of why I think I did that push and pull too. I didn't know it at the time. And even when I started doing my work, when I started stepping into being a teacher and a support for others, part of the work that I do is I work on missing persons cases for an organization called Find Me. And I started realizing that that's hard for me. Like it's not ever pretty situations. And even stepping in a mediumship, I'm like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do mediumship. I don't want to talk to dead people, because if there's a dead person, that means there's pain. And I don't want anything to do with pain. Right? Okay, well, that's going to be impossible to do in a life. Like pain is part of the experience. And so that working with Michael consistently is the key. Consistently, friends, that is a life changer.
I can go for, I feel like on every sentence you say, I want to go back. So, and also the meaning of pain. But I want to dive in a little deeper into the different angels.
Sure.
Would that be a good time for us
Yeah.
to invite your dear friend Chris and
Yes, absolutely.
us
Absolutely.
angels or
So
our
yeah, we'll pull Chris on, and what I'll do is I do want to just share a couple of the different angels. I think Michael's the most popular one. I mean, he just is, and the other angels don't care because they don't have an ego. So that's good. But Michael's the most so most people know Michael's energy. Most people know what Michael feel. At least have heard of Michael. Let's say. But one of the angels that is not as common, that a lot of people do not know a lot about, and I just want to kind of set this up for a minute before we bring you an experience, is Archangel Chamuel. So Archangel Chamuel is the angel of unconditional love. And Chamuel's energy helps us to learn to love ourselves unconditionally first. It's like put your mask on first, then put the mask on the other people if you're on the plane going down, right? So Chamuel helps us to love ourselves unconditionally and then love others unconditionally. And that, I think, even though I'd had that experience when I was 13, I felt it. I had such a hard time getting to it consistently. I had such a hard time feeling like I deserved it, even though I knew I did. I really struggled with that. And so I've worked throughout my life, Amir, to constantly, and this is a constant, it's a daily thing. It's not like, oh, it's done, good, I'm good. I have moments just like all of us. And so Archangel Chamuel is the angel that I feel like I do probably the most, I call on Michael every day, but I think I do the most deep work with Chamuel in being loving and kind to myself, and then being able to be loving and kind to others, especially if they're pissing me off. Then I really call in Chamuel's energy because, guys, come on, it's real, it happens. So, I wanted to create an experience for all of you. And this is an experience that Chris and I, whenever we do our live events, we do this in every event. And it's different because we have people and we have people in boxes here. So it doesn't work the same. But I think that it's the best way that we can recreate an experience with Chamuel. And so I just want to set up a little bit. The way that Chamuel, I started working with Chamuel is that I was trying to discern the difference between self-esteem and self-worth. And I want you all that are listening, just throw in the chat, how would you define self-esteem and how would you define self-worth? So for me, I recognize that self-esteem, well, I actually didn't. I was like, I don't know what the difference is. I just know that I want both. I want self-esteem and I want self-worth. And throughout, a few years of working with Chamuel, what Chamuel said to me was that self-esteem and self-worth, when we are born, are in alignment. They're the same. They're the same energy. And we know our value and we know our worth when we come into this physical world. I mean, we come here with no money, no clothes, no nothing, no job, and somebody just takes care of us. And some people had parents that took better care than others, but we get that care of us because we're worthy, because we're deserving. So Chamuel, what I learned is that because I had such a struggle with that, it's because as I grew up, as we all grow up, we start to have society project what is valuable and not onto us. You're a good girl or you're a bad boy. You're good if you got good grades, you're bad if you didn't. You're good if you picked up your toys, you're bad if you didn't. And so we started to separate. So that self-worth and self-esteem that were aligned, that were connected, that we came in knowing, then got separated. And our self-esteem, the self-worth is always there. It is innate. It is within every single one of us. If you're a spirit in a body, you are worthy. The end. That's what Chamuel says. Now, our self-esteem, though, the more we live and the more experience we have and the more comparison and the more judgment and all the experiences that we've had, the further a lot of us get from our self-esteem. So our self-esteem gets further and further away from the truth of who we really are. My self-esteem was so far away that at the age of 18, before I got pregnant, I was on food stamps and welfare. I was living in a shack. I didn't have running water. I had no heat. I had no bed. I couldn't afford one. I slept on the floor with mice running over us in the middle of the night. That literally was my life experience. Now, somebody that loves themselves enough does not live that way. They figure out another way. I chose that. It wasn't that I couldn't go to my parents. I chose it because I'm going to do it myself, right? So Chamuel taught me how to start to bring that self-esteem back and line my self-worth and my self-esteem together. So self-esteem is your perception of your value. Self-worth is your innate value. Okay, do you see the difference? Self-esteem, perception of your value, self-worth, your innate value. So what I want to do is I want to give you an experience. And what we're going to do is I'm going to actually invite Chamuel to channel through me. And Chris is going to play a song that was written intentionally to bring Chamuel's energy in so that you can experience Chamuel. Now, if we were in a group together, all in the same room, I would have you looking into each other's eyes. But we don't have that available, so we're going to use me. So I'm going to ask them to put me on screen. Yep, perfect. There's my big face right there, guys. So I'm going to ask them to put me on screen. Chris is going to play the song. And what I'd like for you to do, if you can, is I just want you to look into my eyes and see if you can allow yourself to feel the energy of Archangel Chamuel. And so I just want you to just keep your eyes open, look right into my eyes, and listen to the words. Let that music and those words move through you. And if emotion comes up, let yourself feel it. And bring in that energy of unconditional love so that you can maybe remember the truth inside of you, that you also are unconditional love. Okay. All right, Chris, you ready?
I'm ready. Tell me what you see when you look into my eyes. Is there a doorway to my heart, or is it blocked by my disguise? Tell me what you feel when I reach out to hold your hand. Am I open and inviting, or is it too much to withstand?
Breathe.
I can't find my value. I've never been good enough. Please help me find my way. I'm tired of being tough. The treasure is within you. It's not hard to find. I can see it in your soul, and I can hear it in your mind. It's the joy in your laughter and the smile on your face. It's the beauty deep within, for you're a child full of grace. So let me help you see what I see when I look at you. You're so incredibly beautiful and worthy through and through. And let me help you feel what I feel when I hold your hand. A love so pure and true that my heart fully expands. Tell me what you see.
Just close your eyes for a moment. Take a deep breath. I just want you to recognize sacredness of the space that we create. And we bring in the energy of the angels. Whether you could feel that presence or know it, you saw the color pink, you heard a loving message, whatever experience you had, I know was perfect for you. If you'd like to take a moment just of gratitude to the angels, knowing they are with you as soon as you call them in. Thank you, friends. Thank you, Chris. You guys made me tear up too. Just saying. Okay.
Wow. Thank you.
Woo! Okay.
No, a minute. I don't want to get out of it so quickly. It's like bathing. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. What a beautiful voice and guitar. And thank you, Sunny. And thank you, Chamuel. And thanks all of you that held space together. It's so beautiful to be together in this and even virtually create that space. It's not,
Yeah, I think that, you know, for me, that experience is so powerful because I feel you. I feel you. And I know that as you're in that space, because I remember feeling like, why me? Why is this happening for me? In the sense of the good things. I remember asking why me when things were happening that I didn't want to have happen either. But, you know, you are a spirit and a body, and that spirit is worthy and deserving because it is love. The end, it is. And so when you feel that, whether that just awakened a little bit of energy in you, whether you really could feel the energy of love, where you could feel the presence of Chamuel, whether you could just sense a sense of calm or peace, whatever it was for you is perfect for you for now. But what I do want to remind you of is you have access. It's the one thing, you know, we're trying to access all these things. You have access 24/7 for that support, that help, and literally all you have to do is ask.
and be free to receive.
You got it.
So I want to ask a couple more questions, and then maybe we'll open the mic to whoever wants to ask questions or work with Sunny. So prep your questions, guys. You know, first of all, can you talk a little bit about the difference between archangels, spirits, higher self? There are all sorts of terms that are used sometimes, you know, mixed up a little bit, and sometimes do you find yourself connecting to different resources or primarily with archangels, and how do you distinct between those? And then secondary question to the same one, how do you know that is the archangel answer and not your inner mind or conditioned thoughts or whatever?
Sure. Great questions. Just remind me because I might not remember the second one. So I'll start with the way that I began to discern the difference between the angelic realm and the spirit guides and our deceased loved ones and the ascended masters. I could feel a difference, but I didn't even know how to separate it. I was like, I don't know what this is. And because, you know, I didn't have a book to read, there was no Guidely around 40 years ago, you know, none of this existed. And so I went because I was a very intellectual kid. I went to the library because that's exactly what I was going to do. I went to the library. I'm like, okay, well, there's got to be books. So the only books on angels were religious books. And I didn't necessarily believe any of that. So I'm like, okay, there's got to be something else. So they sent me to the occult section. of course. And the occult section had runes, astrology, and numerology. Those were the only books available in Salt Lake City, Utah, on any of this. And so the only way I knew to get any information was to ask, literally. And so that's how I that's how I learned. So everything that I'm sharing with you, I just want to share with you guys is that everything I'm sharing with you is based on experience from working with them, not something I read because there was nothing to read at that time. So the way they explained it to me is we're a spirit in a body. And when we drop the body, okay, when we die, when we drop the body, our spirit ascends and our body drops away. And simply because our spirit ascends, so if we're human beings are here, we're at the very bottom. We are the dense energy. And the reason we're dense is just because we have a body. It doesn't mean we're dumb. It just means we're dense, right? But when we drop that body, our vibration automatically raises simply because we drop the body. If we were somebody that was really high vibrational person here in the physical world, then our energy is going to raise just in a little bit higher frequency. But if you were a low vibrational person, generally in the physical world, then your vibration is going to raise. It's still going to raise no matter what, because you dropped the body. So this is where kind of our deceased loved ones are. This is next frequency up. The next level up from that are our spirit guides. So our spirit guides, some of them can be family members, ancestors, absolutely. But our spirit guides, they walked the physical earth. So they had a physical body, they had a life, they dropped their body, passed away, died, and then they chose ascension. They chose to be a teacher. They chose to be a guide, and they're coming back and supporting those of us in this human realm from the space that they are in now. So their frequency is higher. So here we are as ourselves. Here's our deceased loved ones. Here's the spirit guides. Then we got into the ascended masters and the angels and the archangels. And so the ascended masters walked a physical journey, dropped their body, moved up, kind of up the ranks, so to speak. And all of this is frequency. It's just vibration. It's not good, bad, right, wrong. It's just frequency. And so, so then we've got the ascended masters and our angels and our archangels. And then we've got the divine, the God of your understanding, whatever that is for you. So if we're here in this lower frequency and we want to connect with our deceased loved ones, our spirit guides, our angels, our archangels, etc., then what we need to do is we just need to raise our vibration. We don't want to raise our vibration so high that we're dead, because we want to experience it in this physical realm. But how do we raise our vibration? You know, we meditate, we laugh, we play, we sing, we dance, like anything that makes you happy, that brings you joy, raises your vibration, because joy is the highest expression of love that there is. And so when we're in joy, then that's going to raise your vibration. Now, how do we discern those differences? So our deceased loved ones, the way that they come through, there's more of a density to them. So we're dense because of the body, but their energy is more dense. It generally gives us more really physical types of messages. So, you know, the animals that come through in different signs, the pennies that are dropping or things like that. And then also physical, like presence, physical feeling. We feel their presence. We smell the scent that was connected to them. They smoked cigarettes and we can smell that smoke in our houses and we're not smoking. Those kinds of things are from our deceased loved ones. It's just a lower frequency, but it's higher than ours. So we notice that. They're pretty much the easier ones to observe, actually, because the energy is more dense. The next vibration up, our spirit guides, well, they walked a physical body, but they've raised their vibration higher than that. So their energy isn't quite as dense as our deceased loved ones, but it still has more of a physicality to it. There's more of a physical sensation. When we start moving into the ascended masters and the angels and the archangels, that frequency starts to get really high. The angels specifically and the archangels, the frequency is so fast, it's so quick that when it comes to us, it's actually very subtle. It's soft. It's that's why oftentimes we miss it, because it's so subtle that we just count it as like, well, that was weird, or oh, I just keep feeling like that, you know, like you've got a presence here, or a little subtle feather drops in front of you and like, well, that was weird. That feather just showed up. Anytime you say that is weird, it is likely spirit. Okay. So I like in my classes, that word's not allowed. You can say that was cool. You can say that was unique. You can say that's interesting. You can't say that's weird, because weird is what we are. We are that. That is what you're looking for when you're wanting to connect with your angels and guides. So that's how you start to discern. And it takes a lot of practice, guys. If you have loved ones in spirit that you want to invite in, or you want to call in, you know, as a medium, for me, that energy is much more palpable. You can feel it. There's a density to it. Whereas the angelic realm is very subtle. And so with any of the energies that you're wanting to call in, presence is the most important thing, because because spirit only speaks in present moment, right now, right now, right now. It's never past, it's never future, it's right now. And so when you're wanting to develop that skill and then want to know who is it, which is always what people want to know, the first thing I say is, first off, don't start focusing on who it is. Just focus on the fact that it's in front of you. Like, just open yourself up to connect with it, because the who is it is your head getting in the way of the experience. Don't throw the experience away because you want to label it something. So first start having the experiences. And as you start to develop those and the experiences start to feel a little bit different, that's when you're accessing different frequencies. That's when, okay, which felt lower, which felt more dense, that's deceased loved one. Then you might want to tune into, okay, is it my grandfather? Is it my dad? And the way you start to tell that is because there'll be subtle senses. There'll be a message. There'll be a thing that pops into your head. So you're claircognizant, clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, clairfragrant. Those start to expand. They start to get your attention. When it's with the angels, and I don't know why it happened for me at that age, but because I certainly wasn't in a high frequency. But I think on a soul level, I was asking deeply for help, and my prayer was answered. And so then they activated me. It was almost like I got like an attunement. You know, I've been a Reiki master for 25 years or whatever. It was like I got an attunement, but there was no physical person there. So when you start to open up like that, don't get so focused on who, what, where, when. Get focused on the experience. That invites more of it in. As soon as you start trying to figure it out, you're in your head and you lose the experience. So does that answer that question? Now I'm trying to...
Yeah, no, it's great. It's
okay.
Absolutely. And it also helps me understand, how do you know, like tuning into what kind of vibration it is? How do you know if it's your inner voice, your mental, your whatever it is, or ego?
Sure. So I think the way that I started to be able to discern the difference is that so a lot of times we go to it to figure it out. So we're like, the best example, or one of the examples I can think of right now off the top of my head is like, let's say you're driving down the road and you got the radio on, the kids are in the back and they're screaming and doing their thing. And you all of a sudden have just a thought pops in that says, go check on Aunt Sandy. Okay. And so the thought pops in, it came to you. So when it comes to you like that, that is your intuition. Now that is different than if I'm driving down the road, radio's on, kids are talking in the background, and I drive by Aunt Sandy's old high school and I see her old high school, which reminds me of Aunt Sandy. And then I think, oh, I need to check on Aunt Sandy. That's me going to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's one of the easiest ways, is when it just comes to you from out of the blue. You get that gut feeling immediately. It's not like you're thinking about it. It comes to you. When you're thinking about it and it comes to you, that's when it starts becoming hard to discern. And discernment is one of my favorite things. And it's the most challenging thing, because I can't teach people how to discern, because the signs and symbols are different for everyone. Right. So I can't teach you how to discern. All I can say is start keeping a symbols journal, keeping an intuition journal. I have a community that we practice intuition every week. And that's exactly one of the things I ask, like, pay attention, write this stuff down, do the homework, notice what you're noticing, because if you don't, you miss it. And then you don't really pay attention to it. And anytime that you think something's weird, it's usually intuition. The crazy thing that you're thinking about doing, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy, that is likely your spirit.
You know, Shannon and I keep saying, you know, follow the breadcrumbs, right? It's like, because we get breadcrumbs, whether if we see them, then, you know, it's tells us something.
Exactly.
Or we also say, what would Louise Hay say?
Yeah. Louise Hay is
Not-
where a lot of my personal development work started. I love Louise.
So do we. And now we'll say also, what would Sunny Dawn say? We'll enhance our vocabulary. So Sunny, one last question, and then maybe we'll invite the courageous members of our audience here to step on stage. You know, angels' work seems like, you know, spiritual and whatever, and I want to make sure, and I would love for you to talk about it a little bit. You know, how do we use it in the day-to-day life? Like, how do you, like, do I make this business decision or not? Do I start dating this person or not? Or do I quit this job? Do I make this trip or whatever it is? I mean, how do we bring it into the day-to-day? Because it's not just a airy-fairy,
Right.
you know, stories. It's really, you know, walking through using that as a navigation system in some way.
Yes.
How to use the spirit for our body. So I would love for you to talk about it.
Yeah, and that's part of what they want to do. They want to help us. That's the whole point, right? They want to help. They want to support. They want to guide. And here's the thing. This might go against what most people believe, but the angels want ultimately you to feel love, to feel who you really are. And there's lots of ways we get there. And so they don't really care which way you turn. Like, it's not like, oh no, don't miss this way, go this way. But they do want to support you in what could be for your highest and greatest good. So if you make a right turn and they're like, oh, that wasn't allowing it. Now you're going to always have another choice, and they will always help support us in presenting us with choices. But I think sometimes people are like, well, I want to know what the angels think I should do. They don't. Okay. They're here to support your higher, greater good. They're here to support your dreams, your visions. So you decide what it is you want to feel, and they will help give you steps to get to that. But a lot of times people just sit and wait. Well, I'm just waiting for my angels to tell me what to do next. No, not that way. You decide what it is you want to feel, what you want to experience, and then you open yourself up and ask for the path of least resistance, and let them then show you the breadcrumbs one after the other. So when I was writing my book that my publisher told me I needed to share,
This is a good time. This is a great time. Wait. So we share a friend, Randy Davila, who published Sunny's both books, right?
Yeah, well, he's published several of them, yes.
Yeah. And Invoking the Archangels, must read. It's a navigation system and a manual to connect to our archangels, but really also to connect to ourselves. Yeah. That's what I find in this book. So really highly recommend that. Otherwise, Randy will fire me.
Right. Check. So we did. But when I was writing the book, one of the things that I was asking for, because I really wanted to try to give people a process, because I know that for me, I do better. I like to do things off the cuff. I'm a very off the cuff person, but when I'm not sure what to do, I like to have steps, like 1, 2, 3, 4, give it to me. And so I asked the angels for a process, and they gave me a very simple 4-step process to work with them consistently, like on a day-to-day basis. So very easy, guys. Number 1, ask for help, ask for what you need, ask for what you're looking for, ask for their support. So number 1 was ask. Number 2 is allow. Now that means don't try and control it. So, a lot of times we're like, okay, I want you to show me a sign on Thursday at 3:00, and this is the sign I want to see. Okay. Allow, like, get out of the way and allow them to come in and give you that. Because what they're doing also is they're teaching us how to listen, how to pay attention, how to be present, and how to trust. So 1 is ask, 2 is allow. The third one is believe. When you believe, so I know that I have the support, because you don't see it and then believe it. That's what a lot of people think. Well, I'll believe it when I see it. Other way around. So ask, allow, believe that it's coming to you, believe that the sign is showing up, believe that you deserve it, believe that you're worthy, and then receive. Ask, allow, believe, receive. And so on a practical sense, as far as like on our day-to-day life, every single day I ask, And when I ask, I don't always have an outcome I'm looking for, but I always ask for their help and their support. And what I like to do, Amir, is I have a tendency to be, I'm an Aries, so I have a tendency to be heady. My nature is to be in my head, and I have to work daily to stay in my heart. So what works for me is to make sure that I touch my heart, like I tap into my heart, I get present with my heart. So when I'm in that state of asking or opening up to receive, I always connect with my heart to remind me that it's my heart, my spirit, that I want to guide me. And that's where I want the guidance to come from also. I don't want myself. Yes, I like when I'm doing accounting, I need this sucker right here. But when I'm making decisions about my life, I really want to come from here first. Then my head will validate it. Right. So ask, allow, believe, receive is the process that I really do on a consistent basis.
That is such a great tip, Sunny, because the allow and the believe parts are we talk a lot about curiosity here, and I find myself being curious, but also want the outcome to be what I want it to be.
Yes.
And then I'm really getting in the way of whatever is there. So that's one thing. And the second thing is really asking for what is my highest best interest and how do I want to feel.
Yes.
It's not so much about whether it's going to be this partner or this job, or it's really how do I want to feel in that dynamic.
So important. I'm so glad you said that, because I certainly do not want that to be missed. It's not ever about the end result of the title or the person or the thing. It's about the experience of the feeling all the way through it. And when we get, that the feeling is the key to manifestation. Is you can think things all day long and you can say them all day long, but when you put feeling behind it, positive or not so positive, you get it. So that feeling is the thing that makes us different. That's what gives us our power, is that feeling and that emotion. When you get focused on how you want to feel and you care enough about how you feel, because a lot of people don't care enough about how they feel, quite honestly. When you care enough about how you feel, then the things that you desire to create will show up even greater than what you can imagine.
Boom. Greater than we can imagine. Who wants to ask a question, guys? This is a rare opportunity to work directly with the master in archangels, connecting to our guided spirits. So first of all, for those of you who don't know, Sunny, I would love to maybe share what you do with people now. I know you have some groups. I know you work with individuals. I think we're going to drop here a link to book a session with you. So I would love to maybe how you help people. You mentioned you work with business people in our space. Would love to get to understand better, what do you do?
Sure. So I do a lot of things because I get bored easy. So what I spend most of my time doing right now really is teaching, because I love to teach, and mentoring. So I mentor a lot of people in this field. So in the spiritual arts and healing and psychic and medium and coaching fields, is helping them to start, build, and grow, develop their businesses. Because a lot of people in this realm really struggle with the detail. They have the heart and they want to do it, but then it's the details and it's the steps and it's the groundedness of running a business. So I help a lot of people in that area. And then the other area, and then of course I'm passionate about teaching in all areas. So I have a program, I have a community for intuition that I teach every weekend, and my spiritual biz that I teach every weekend. And then what I really love to do is I love to mentor people in wherever they're at in their lives and just help support them. So whether it's developing their skills, whether it's developing their confidence, which is a huge one. So I kind of, because I get bored easy, I do a lot of things because I love doing a lot of things. So it's a hard question for me to answer.
And you have such a huge toolbox that
I do.
That's really incredible. So we're so grateful to have you as a guide in our community and really have been with us for such a long time. I can't say enough about this book. I asked you to buy it because it's amazing and it will open your mind in different ways. Those of you who raised your hand and didn't get a chance to ask a question today, we have an integration session that will be conducted with Chandel, one of our resident guide, and also have been with us for quite a while and have had a chance to work a little bit with Sunny and got a flavor for it. And I really highly, highly recommend to, even if it's just to gather and sit down and talk, hey, how was this session for you? What's your takeaways? And really maintain that group. We have our community that I encourage you guys to join. And it's an app that you download, it's free. And we're here for you. So whatever you need, let us know. Sunny, I can't thank you enough for tonight. I can't.
Hey, can I say something about your group?
Yeah.
By the way, that little card had February, so I'm sure there's a March date for Chandel, but I got to chat with Chandel a little bit, and I wanted to just share that, it's not very often that we get to do an interview like that, and then you get to have somebody that's going to help you like integrate into it. When they told me that was happening, really appreciate and respect the fact that you guys have something that's helping people not just take the information that's sitting here right now, because I tend to talk really fast too, like, I know there's a lot of information, but then break it down from a different perspective, because I think that's so important, is my way isn't the right way and your way isn't the right way, and the other person's, it's you, whatever you find that's going to work for you. And so integrating this and being able to have somebody kind of break it down from their perspective, that they hear it a little bit differently, I think is so powerful. And I was so I didn't know that you guys did that, so I was really impressed with that. So I just wanted to make that statement. And I really like Chandel because she's got some cool energy, and she's got a lot of tools in her tool belt too. So that's really, really cool. Really cool.
She definitely has a lot of tool and has an incredible energy. She was just here this week and we already miss her. And thanks for saying that, because part of the philosophy behind starting Guidely was that we go to workshops and read books and do retreats, and we get all sorts of stimulation. But really what matters at the end of the day is whatever we integrate and internalize and make a part of ourselves. And that's the part that I believe in the spiritual community is missing the most, because we get this, woo factor, everybody becomes licensed in something, but really living that way. And I know how hard and you, Sharon, how many years, 15 years of pushing and pulling, I still push and pull.
Yeah,
I think we all do. So the idea of really having somebody to help us and walk the path with us is so profound. So I really want to say huge thank you for tonight. So generous, so opening. Thanks for the music and for the song and for all of us experience Chamuel's energy. I can't conclude this without saying that I felt unconditional love and peace in this session.
Good. That's beautiful. I'm so glad.
And we have a habit here. We bring everybody, those of you who can open your cameras, we'll put it in a grid form and open your mics and say good night. It's going to sound like a big, loud scramble.
I love that.
But we want to hear everybody. Good night, everybody, wherever you are. Sending you much love.